Today on Gunbelievable, we're taking a look at the pistol from Altor Corp. This gun is so cheap they didn't even give it a proper name. The manufacturer lists it simply as Altor Pistol 9mm caliber with black handle. With only 6 parts and a street price of $80, this is the modern polymer-framed striker-fired 9mm handgun we have at home. But its simple design gives me the heebie-jeebies. Why? Let's find out. The pistol comes in a basic cardboard box, and for the price you can't really expect much else. You get a manual and the legally mandatory safety lock, which in this case is a tiny little oddity. We'll come back to that. The gun is light, weighing just 10.6 ounces fully loaded, and by fully loaded I mean with 1 round. It's bigger than it looks, being about as long and as tall as a Glock 43, but much wider. Picking it up, the grip feels terrible. It's smooth, the texturing you see does nothing. When I grip it as feels most natural, it points way left, and shifting it to point straight ahead feels all wrong, like biting aluminum foil. It's a bit front-heavy on account of being so sharply divided, all metal in the front, all polymer in the back. It rattles quite a bit. There's a lot of play between the barrel and the frame, which doesn't inspire confidence. The trigger is this strange little nub. It's directly connected to the striker and striker spring, so there are no stages or walls, it just goes straight back. It's smooth if you go fast, but stutters a bit if you're slower, and measures about 3.5 pounds, though it feels heavier than that. When you get near the end of travel, this ramp in the frame pushes your finger away and the trigger flies forward. This makes precise control difficult, though you can build muscle memory for when it's just about to slip, and then push the rest of the way through. The overall travel is so long that you feel like you're about to touch your own palm. It's a bit awkward if you have long fingers like I do. Coming back to the included trigger lock, it's almost like a hose clamp. Slide it around the frame just behind the trigger, thread the world's tiniest lock through the holes, squeeze it tight, and the trigger's rearward travel is blocked. But it's so insubstantial that, forget about picking, I bet any no-skill attack, like a hammer, would defeat it instantly. There's a protruding ridge in the middle of the grip that gives me the option of putting my middle finger above or below, but both options stink. If you go above, then your finger gets in the way of the trigger and makes a full press difficult. You'll need to shift and make some compromises to get it to work. If you go below, your pinky won't get fully on the gun, and you're giving up a lot of leverage. In either case, you'll have to keep your support hand low, because the lack of trigger guard means it could also interfere with the trigger pull. The sights are incredibly basic, just simple black irons. They're blocky, and the distance between them is tiny, less than 2.5 inches, which won't help with accuracy. Reading the manual, 2 things jumped out at me. First, you're not supposed to use this gun to do crimes. Dang. And second, you're not supposed to fire this gun without the barrel attached. Strange thing to warn about. On most guns that's not possible, but on this gun it is. Watch. To load it, you pull the trigger slightly, yes really, and you rotate the barrel from the fire position over to safe, and then further to the disassembly position, where the barrel can come off. Notice how at rest, the striker protrudes through the breech face, preventing me from sliding a cartridge all the way on. So now I have 3 options. 1, I can pull the trigger slightly to get the striker out of the way, which is nerve-wracking. Detonating the cartridge at this point would blow it up like a firecracker, sending shrapnel everywhere. I can engage the safety before I do this, which just limits how far back the trigger can go. It's still able to strike the primer, but it shouldn't have enough energy to set it off. I did some testing, and I haven't gotten a primer to pop with the safety engaged, but I'm still not entirely comfortable with it. Option 2, I can start by locking the trigger behind the safety. Pull the trigger all the way, hold it to the rear, engage the safety, slowly release. But now, if I accidentally bump the safety off, the trigger will fly forward, with more energy than it could have had with the previous method. Testing this, I made many attempts, I usually got nothing, but 1 primer did detonate. Option 3, I can use some finesse. If I pull the tip of the bullet up while simultaneously pushing down on the rim with a lot of force, I can just make enough of an angle to force the round over the striker. It isn't elegant, but it's probably the safest method. Altor doesn't mention this anywhere. All their materials simply say not to touch the trigger and just push the cartridge down, which doesn't work at all. Anyway, having loaded the cartridge, you now slide the barrel back on and rotate it into the safe position until you're ready to shoot. This notch on the underside of the barrel is cut such that the safe position blocks the striker from going all the way forward and firing the cartridge. But don't get comfortable because it's super easy to rotate the barrel from safe to fire. Just a little bump or jostle could do it. And if there's any pressure on the trigger at all, then the barrel rotates totally freely. So freely, in fact, that the barrel could fall off. People tend to rest their finger on the trigger, and combining that with some accumulated shakes and jostles could let the barrel rotate to the disassembly position, which leaves you with the spicy firecracker situation, finger on the trigger, yikes. Not especially likely, but not impossible. Even if the barrel's still attached in the fire position, this gun is not bump safe. The trigger's exposed, and it's directly connected to the striker's resting on the primer, so anything that pushes it forward could fire the gun. Using just a primer and a gentle tap from this mallet, you can see we've made a dent. Uh-oh. There's also no drop safety mechanism, and while I doubt that a trigger with this little mass will have enough inertia to go back very far if the gun lands like this, there's no mechanical guarantee it can't. There's not much aftermarket support for this gun, but the manufacturer does offer a few accessories, like these elastic bands you can use for storing extra rounds or mounting a flashlight. There's a holster with 6 cartridge loops and 0 retention, in case you want to test for yourself how drop safe this gun is and look like a poverty-stricken space cowboy while doing it. Most excitingly, you can spend more than you paid for the gun on a threaded barrel, allowing you to attach the compensator or suppressor of your choice. Neat! We'll come back to that. Shooting the pistol is deeply unpleasant, the worst I've filmed yet on this channel. It kicks like a mule. With its lightweight, small grip, and lack of dampening mechanical action, it has everything going against it. If you shoot it with your middle finger below that ledge on the grip, the gun feels like it's flipping out of your hand. And if you go above the ledge, it sends half the recoil force right into the first joint. Very painful. Maybe you're thinking that what it lacks in comfort, it makes up for in reliability. But after putting a handful of rounds through this gun, I started having difficulty removing the barrel to reload. The causes turned out to be ergonomic. You need to apply trigger pressure to rotate the barrel, and if you don't apply quite enough, you can only rotate to the safe position, not to the disassembly position. Even if you do apply enough pressure, rotating the barrel slightly too far, just beyond the disassembly position, will prevent it from coming off. Not exactly slick. You won't be reloading this quickly. As for accuracy, hoo boy, there is none to be had. I'm a decent pistol shooter, but it took me slow, careful effort just to get rounds into the generous A-zone of this target at all at 5 yards. As I mentioned earlier, the sights are quite poor, the trigger is terrible. That play I mentioned between the barrel and the frame isn't helping the gun's mechanical accuracy either. To top it off, the bullets are tumbling. Rather than spinning nicely like a thrown football, they're flipping end over end, which is why the holes in this target are large and ragged. It doesn't take a physicist to know that a tumbling projectile isn't going to fly as straight and true as a stable one. According to the manufacturer, tumbling bullets are completely normal. To cheap out on making the barrels, they skipped cutting the rifling grooves that impart stabilizing spin on the bullet. Instead, they gave it micro grooves, the legal minimum for rifling. On the left, you'll see a normal pistol barrel, and on the right, the Altor Pistol's barrel. To the naked eye, the micro grooves are a little more visible than this, but not much. There are 4 of them, and they do go all the way down the full length. Even so, they're more theoretical than actual, like plot in Marvel movies. For all the unpleasantness, I was really looking forward to shooting this gun suppressed. With no moving parts to make noise, it'd be as quiet as you can get in a 9mm pistol. But when I received it, my fears were confirmed. The threaded barrel isn't rifled either. I know that bullets probably won't tumble all that much in the first 6 inches of travel, and in a .45 caliber suppressor like this one, I have some extra margin for error, but I can't know for certain that shooting this won't cause a baffle strike and damage the suppressor. That's more trouble than it's worth, so sadly, this barrel will go unused. I'm surprised at how much this gun has in common with the S333 Thunderstruck, the double-barrel revolver from one of my previous videos. Unconventional design, strange look, tumbling bullets, fantastically awful trigger, painful to shoot, unique safety concerns, and the manufacturer claiming it's good for self-defense. Altor even references the rule of threes on its website. Using this gun for self-defense is obviously absurd, and there are so many limitations and risks that it's hard to think of any use cases, but I came up with 2. 1, if dispatching livestock is a thing you need to do, and you have absolutely no budget at all, this could serve as a veterinary pistol. And 2, it's an impulse purchase for the people who find themselves in a gun shop and see that super weird thing in the case and figure, hey, it costs less than a high point, might as well. Whatever that disease is, I have a nasty case. That's it from Gunbelievable on the Altor Pistol. Smash that like button, be sure to subscribe. If I get 1 million subs, I'll shoot it outdoors at long range, using something big enough to destroy it completely.